You're listening to the A to Z of Human Performance live show weekdays at 13:30 GMT with Chris Lissaman and resident expert Jonna Sercombe. Please enjoy responsibly. And here he is, your host, Chris Lissaman.
Well, welcome everybody to the second of our 20 live shows this month. Thanks for coming back if you joined us yesterday or for jumping in for the first time. I'm here with Jonna again. Jonna, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me along.
It's great to have you here.
What a surprise.
My name's Chris Lissaman. I'm your host for these 20 sessions, and we're treating this as a bit of a radio show style of thing. So you can have it on in the background, maybe having lunch. Just keep it on in the background. We're going to be chatting away. We've got a lot to chat through today, Jonna.
Yeah, it's going to be a good show. Really looking forward to it. And I had a quick look back at yesterday's, and that was quite fun as well. So
it was great fun, wasn't it? And Jonna, of course, is CEO of Interactive Workshops and one of 3 authors of the new book, The A to Z of Human Performance, which I've got here.
Oh, lucky you.
Got a copy, been reading it. And for anyone who missed the live show yesterday, if you do have any questions during the show, just drop those in the chat box and I'll pick up on those and pose them to Jonna. Yeah, I really enjoyed yesterday's show, Jonna. That was great fun.
It was good, wasn't it? And it was interesting to think about our attitude and how that defines our altitude. And I'm excited to get stuck into today's topic, big on beliefs. Yeah,
big on belief. It's a big one. And before we do that, Jonna, you obviously wrote the book with Emma and Steve. They're quite successful people. Why are you there with them?
Oh, thanks, Chris. Is that a joke from the Lissaman? Have you got a little? Are you being mean to me there? No, I mean, they're extremely successful people. But interestingly, when we sat down to write the book, we all agreed none of us actually are interested in being successful people. Success is a very, it's a kind of interesting term, isn't it? But what we're interested in is how you can get the best out of yourself and how you can achieve high performance. And as Emma will say, if you're in a race and you give your absolute best performance that comes second, people might consider you not to be successful, but perhaps getting the best out of yourself is what success is. And that's a belief that we all share. I guess, we're interested as we put this book together about what high performance from human beings looks like in lots of different areas. And I think you came up with the copy, but in sport, work, and in life. And I've dedicated my business career to success in high performance in work. I have grown a company in the last 15 years that's grown by 30 times, 3,000%. And in our field, consulting, I've worked with some of the world's most famous companies, Airbus, Red Bull, BMW Group, some of these real behemoths of the corporate world, and therefore got to work with a lot of extremely high-performing individuals. And I've copied and stolen what I've learned from those organizations and distilled it down into some of my own theories about how to get the best out of myself and how others can do the same. So, yeah, I mean, I haven't got any Olympic gold medals or I've never been in a war zone, but...
no, you do have an impressive CV yourself, though.
Oh, Chris.
I am only joking.
Oh, I know you love me, really.
And yesterday's show is available on our YouTube channel and on our website as well, so you can check that out if you missed it. But this week, we have 5 shows. So yesterday was Attitude to Altitude. Today's theme, big on belief. Tomorrow, we've got culture creation. So if you're part of a team, that might be helpful for you. Drives and desire is an intriguing theme on Thursday. And then elevating endurance closes out the week on Friday. So join us for those. You can sign up on the website, interactiveworkshops.com. But Jonna, let's get stuck into big on belief. There's only one place to start. What exactly is a belief?
Well, that is a very good question, my friend. And it's interesting. I mean, human beings are a pretty evolved animal. We're a social animal, but we're also got highly evolved intellectual functions. And I studied cognitive science as my background, and we looked at how the brain works, how it's wired, and our beliefs are kind of an emergent phenomena from our physiology, our biology, our neural networks. That's how we learn. And language is pretty important to that in the human being. We've got language as a method to communicate with others, and eventually as our bodies have developed, we've been able to use language to communicate with ourselves. So a bird might sound an alarm call, and that's communicating with other birds. But we've got this thing which is our mind, which we can use to communicate with ourselves as well. And within that, we run this program which we could call language, and we code experiences that we have and emotions that we have with words, and those words, we sometimes build them up into sentences or statements, or sometimes just impressions or feelings, but that is what creates that. That's what we would call a belief. And people might think about religious beliefs, which is perhaps a different area, or philosophical beliefs, but in what we're looking at in our book that we wrote was, what are the things that people who achieve high performance say to themselves and believe about themselves. And I categorize it in 3 different ways. We've got beliefs in general about the way the world works. We've got beliefs about ourselves, self-belief, that kind of thing. And then we've got perhaps beliefs that hold us back, that might be called limiting beliefs. And one interesting area is how we can overcome those, and we would call that breaking belief barriers, how we can go beyond what we think is possible for ourselves. So yeah, that's kind of what we mean by beliefs or on belief, and what we discovered as we were researching and putting together our book. People who achieve a high performance and get the best out of themselves, very careful what they believe and probably even what they say about to themselves or in their own mind. They're careful. If there's a gatekeeper there that's thinking, is this a belief that's going to serve me? Is this a good, healthy thing for me to think?
It's really interesting that you categorize those and you've got those different areas of beliefs. I wonder if beliefs are in a way a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. If I think Friday the 13th is going to be a bad day for me, if that's my belief, does it just turn out to be a bad day?
Well, there's lots of different explanations for how this works. The Rosenthal experiment is a really famous one of it working the other way around. They basically faked an IQ test with some teachers, and then told teachers in different classes that their kids were either brilliant or not that great, when in fact they were. That wasn't related to what their tests were. But the teachers then obviously treat the class slightly differently, and at the end of the year there were different results from the different classes based on what the teachers were told. So the Rosenthal effect is a kind of an example of this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. Sometimes it's called the Pygmalion effect, where Pygmalion was a figure in Greek mythology who fell in love with their own statue, and then the statue came to life. But yeah, there is a kind of self-fulfilling nature to some of these beliefs. But I don't think that just simply because you believe something, it's going to become true at all. And if we look at areas like music, or becoming the Prime Minister, or making it in showbiz, or having 1 billion followers on a YouTube channel, these are not all things that are going to happen. And my friends used to sometimes call me the dream killer. I used to explain to them that their belief that they were going to suddenly become part of a number 1 selling band and go to number 1 and tour the world, the fact that they believed and wanted that didn't mean that was going to come true. And they used to say, well, but I've heard, Justin Timberlake or whatever say, but if you believe it, people are going to tell you it's not going to happen, but you just carry on and you'll make it. That's actually called the survivor bias, which is that people who have made it will tell you that lots of people told them they couldn't and persisted, and therefore that if you ignore those people and persist, you'll make it. But that's because they're the survivors of that process. Maybe it's survival of the fittest. Whereas there are, for every Britney Spears or every Justin Timberlake or every, I'm trying to think of a real successful current artist that doesn't make me 50 years old, but whoever's out there, Marshmallow, for every Marshmallow, there's someone who didn't make it, and probably lots of people who didn't make it. So yes, it can be a self-fulfilling prophecy, but I think it's really important that we gatekeeper what we let into our beliefs. And in those cases, a lot of those people are trying to achieve self-fulfillment through an external validation of their success. And I was going to say, if you want to be successful at music, then learn to play the guitar to a brilliant level. I mean, that could be considered to be successful, couldn't it? And that's within your control to learn, to practice, to probably practice, get great teachers, play with other great musicians, explore what you can actually do on a guitar or in a sport.
So we've already got from somewhere where we were thinking about beliefs, which seems quite intangible, down to something very tangible, like just learning a skill. In Emma's chapter of this book, that is called Big on Belief as well, she writes, did I ever truly believe I could be Paralympic champion? Probably not. But did I believe I could work harder than everyone else? Yes, I certainly did. What do you make of her belief system and the way she approaches her sport?
Well, she's in a competitive environment, and then she has not just competitors in other countries. She has competitors within her own training regime that she has to be better than. And I mean, you've worked with me. You'll know that I'm also like of that mindset that, and this is the whole point of the book, that people who are successful or perform well in lots of different genres have very, very similar underlying patterns at the end. But yeah, she commits to the process, and she wants to get to the start line of a race and think, I've put in everything I can into the training, and I've left no stone unturned, and I've done everything. And that's similar for me in business. You know, when we're trying to achieve our year's sales results or sell a project, you'll know from me, I'm not actually completely going to judge whether we achieve the result. The question is, did we put everything in to the process in order to achieve it? Did we call everybody back? Did we send great proposals? You know, did we do good marketing? Did we do all the things we should do? Everything that's within our control, did we do all those things? And if we did, then whatever happens, we should be able to be satisfied. But high performers, generally, that's how they work. They want to focus on the controllables and do the inputs, and to get the best out of those inputs by believing into and committing to the inputs.
Do you think then we sometimes get self-belief wrong, in that we think it's got to be this massive goal of, I want to become the Prime Minister, I believe I can do it, or I've got to believe that I can be a millionaire, when actually we should be focusing on those inputs that we really maybe do believe?
Yeah, I think that it's easy to fall into those. I think it's easy to seek external validation, and to people will tell me, "Oh, you're a successful entrepreneur." I don't want to listen to that. I don't want to buy into that. That's not. People tell me, "Oh, you're a multimillionaire." That's not helpful for me. That should be kept to one side. That's them projecting onto me their world. But I want to have a healthy belief ecosystem. I'm a normal human being like you. And actually, do you know what? The people running the world are normal human beings. I used to think about Barack Obama. How does he get through his day? He's just a normal human being like you or like me. And this is actually what Steve's really, really interesting. He's, been in war zones and been in all sorts of very dangerous places. And I think I would be tempted to try and believe I was superhuman. But his approach was exactly that way. I'm just a normal person. I will feel scared. If people are shooting at me, I will feel scared. I will rely on habits and things that I've trained, patterns that I've set, and beliefs that will get me through. But we are all just flesh and blood, normal people. And it is interesting that some people can take that resource that they have, their body and their mind and their talents, and turn it into something that reaches a high level of performance, and other people not. So yeah, I wouldn't get caught up in the success one. But I think perhaps on a financial level, that's interesting because, if we look at success of being Prime Minister, there's probably going to be, 20 Prime Ministers over 100 years. So out of 60 million people in the UK, can we all make it to Prime Minister? No. How many millionaires could we make would be a great experiment, wouldn't it? So, I guess that is how the economy works. How successful can we be? One of our clients, when he sold his company, 30 people that worked for him were made millionaires that day from the success they created together. So in certain situations, I think there are success goals that we can go for that are not impossible that we could achieve. And I definitely, Chris, for you, for example, you could definitely be a millionaire because you're a talented guy. So there isn't any reason why you couldn't do that. But you would then, if you were to prioritize that goal, you'd have to perhaps change some of your beliefs about finance. I don't know. Do you see the world as a place that is full of resources there to be harvested? Or is the world a place of scarcity where there's never quite enough to go around, and we need to therefore, not take risks? People who tend to be really good in making money understand how to take risks. And they also, for example, Albert Einstein said that compound interest should be one of the 8 wonders of the world. So, if you're trying to do something financial, if you could improve by 1 or 2% or 10 or whatever percent a year, every year, that's going to be huge. If you did improve by 10% in your finances in 1 year, and then the next year you go down 10%, and then next year up 10%, and then down 10%, you've effectively got net zero. So, if you could compound 5% every year over a lifetime or whatever, you could be financially really wealthy.
I mean, that sounds good. And you're essentially saying you can work back from your belief that perhaps does sound slightly impossible, even though it's not.
Yeah.
You can work back and say, oh, well, actually, I believe that I could make that much in a year and work my way towards a goal.
Yeah.
What do you make of the slogan that I think Adidas have used in the past? Impossible is nothing.
It's grammatically bad, Chris. It actually works well in Europe, doesn't it? Yeah, I mean, certain things are impossible, aren't they? So, well, I certainly believe certain things are impossible. I don't think I can fly to the moon without a rocket. You know, there is a mindset that impossible is nothing. These very elite sports people, again, they're very, very careful about what they will tell themselves and what they will believe. I support Brentford, the local football club, and the manager, Thomas Frank, very, very careful about how he describes in words where they specifically are. Very, very accurate. And I think you know, it is important to be that accurate, because that's how we build the self-trust and the accuracy and the self-confidence. If I say every day impossible is nothing, and today I'm going to run 150 miles, I might make it today. And if I say the next day impossible is nothing, I'm going to run another 150, I don't think I'm going to make it. So, you know, we don't want to tell ourselves things that are lies. We want to breed a kind of system where we're very, very accurate and thoughtful about what we believe in the world.
And the chapter refers to belief perseverance, which I thought was very interesting. Could you share a little bit about that? What is it? Does it help or does it hinder?
It can do both. So belief perseverance is when our beliefs stick around despite evidence to the contrary. You know, the way the human mind works, we also actually often we have beliefs first and we seek the evidence to back them up. We believe, we think that our beliefs come because of what we've experienced, and then we form a belief about it. But actually, a lot of our presuppositions, we go and find out evidence. So, you know, belief perseverance means sometimes we might believe something despite a lot of evidence to the contrary. And I'm just thinking of people that I've worked with, actually, team members who perhaps have had confidence issues and believe they're not very good, despite actually being very good. For some of us, we might categorize that as being a little bit insecure. There's, you know, the psychologists talk about secure attachment and an insecure attachment. And those of us who are secure have assimilated a kind of worldview and a set of beliefs that everything's going to be okay. And we actually feel okay as well. So we feel good within ourselves. And if a bad moment comes along, we might think, you know, this is temporary, it's not going to last. So we're specific about that. Whereas other people may feel that the world's not a great place and that things aren't going to be okay. And when a bad moment comes along, they might say, this is going to be forever. Or this is going to happen all the time. This is going to keep happening to me. So, working out how to manage our belief system and making sure we cut off beliefs that are no longer relevant. One of my old mentors used to talk about the museum of old beliefs. And he'd say, you know, if there's something that's not working for you anymore that you no longer want to believe, you know, mentally just take it out, hang it in a museum. You can go and visit it anytime you like. It'll still be there. You know, that will sit there. Let's say, I don't know, it's something to do with weight or health or whatever, but let's say you believe you're always going to be overweight. Well, that doesn't serve you. So take it off, pop it in the museum of old beliefs, have a look at it and think, you know, yeah, that's something that I believed for a time and for a while, and now I'm going to press on into a healthy lifestyle, and I'm going to set out some goals, and I'm going to try and do the best I can. So beliefs do stick around, though, despite evidence to the contrary, and I sometimes use that with leaders, actually, when I'm trying to challenge them. At one very recent interaction with some very high performance leaders, but they did all spend ages moaning about their company, and I eventually fed that back to them and said, you know, you're saying this is a great company, and then you spent literally hours of our interventions moaning about the various problems there. So how do you square those beliefs? On the one hand, it's an extremely successful organization, one of the top 20 companies in the world, and yet you're saying that it's not a successful company because of all these small problems. No, that's not relevant. It is a successful company. No one needs to. You know, you've got to believe that, and rather than trying to hang on to this belief that there's loads and loads of problems.
Yeah, it's making me think about when I first started interactive workshops and actually got a bit of a sense of imposter syndrome. Just that feeling of, am I actually good enough for this job? It's an amazing job and it's a great team, but you know, despite all of the qualifications that I'd spent, you know, my years before in education building up to, and despite knowing I could do the job, there was that sense of, I don't know whether I deserve it, that sense of persevering with the belief that I perhaps wasn't up to it, despite after week one, still being in a job, you telling me I was doing a good job, week two, doing the same thing, and still that sense of, I'm not sure.
When did it shift for you then, Chris? What kind of things? Because it's interesting again to hang on to these peak experiences that shift our belief, because if we can find out what shifts us into another gear, then we can look to repeat that success again. What shifted for you? When did you think, oh, hang on a minute, no, I've got this.
I think it was probably after about month one. I'm not sure exactly what came into it. I suppose when new people join the company and you think, okay, right, they're now going through that experience, and I guess your mindset shifts from thinking about yourself to thinking about how you can help someone else integrate into the team. When you're not the new kid, that helps, I think, and that helped me change gear.
Yeah, well, it's worth programming that and thinking about that, because that's something you could hang on to. If you were Emma Wiggs, you'd have like a little jar, a mental jar, and she's got this little jar of stuff, and basically anything that she thinks she can help her, she puts it in it. But yeah, so realizing that we're on a progression and that other people will come along behind us, that is a great belief system, isn't it? So if we're feeling that we're not very good at something, or if we're feeling that we're not feeling full of energy or whatever, then yeah, we could think, well, hang on, this is for a moment, and other people will come. A lot of it comes back to with negatives. A lot of it comes back to whether we think it's permanent or temporary, whether we think it's to do with us, and whether we think it's specific, local, or everywhere. And so if we're, we could program in a bad belief by saying that this is to do with us and it's going to happen all the time and it's going to happen everywhere, or the same bad experience. Let's say, I don't know, you lost your wallet or something, but you could say, well, it's a one-off, everybody does it, and it's not going to happen again. Or it might happen again, but it's not too bad. You can actually be careful about how you frame that. So yeah, I'm excited to see your next step. It sounds like you feel comfortable in the role. We'll have to take you on to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. And belief, perseverance, it's an interesting phenomenon, isn't it? And Emma talks about how she would often credit the tailwind with her good performance in the boat. And often when I receive praise, actually, I will look to pass that on to others and say, well, it was a whole team effort and so contributed this. Sometimes do you think humility could actually be an unhelpful assessment of our own performance?
I don't know. I think it's an interesting one to I'd say that's one to just keep a watching brief on. So I think for some people, yes, some people can't handle or don't take encouragement from others and own it and say thank you. If you said to me, I've done a great job, I should say, thanks very much, Chris. I really appreciate that. It's encouraged me. If I were to say, oh, well, it wasn't really me, I'm building on the success of others. In certain moments, that's the thing to say. But I think, that to be able to capture other people, the what you have done that's good is really important. And I think, although Emma may say she credits it with the tailwind, I think it's interesting that she had to work on that and think that's not something I should do. I should think about, I put everything into that process and this is what I've done. But not to be arrogant with it. And I think sometimes there's that sense that it's easy to go the other way.
Yeah, absolutely. And are there some areas where actually our beliefs hinder us?
Yeah, we call these limiting beliefs, don't we? I mean, I don't know if you've ever done anything like the plank challenge where you have to try and do a plank for as long as possible. But how long is as long as possible? I mean, I thought a minute or two was a long time. And then I was walking down the street one day and there was people doing the plank challenge at a fair and they were half an hour in. I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. So, our beliefs can get in the way, and the people who work on belief change often talk about our experience and our expectation. So our experience is what's happened to us, and our expectation is what's going to happen to us. And those are both framed out with sets of beliefs. So, when we look back, as we were talking just now, do we credit our success to things that we did, or is it to luck? Well, if it's always to luck, it's nothing to do with me, then, maybe I'm not that skillful. Whereas if I credit it to myself and say I was skillful in that, then that helps me for the future and it sets our expectation. So, people perhaps in the middle of a pandemic thinking, is life going to return to normal? I think it's really easy to look at the last 3 months and think, oh God, life's going to be like this. But actually, let's look to the last 100 years and say, yeah, it's going to be like it for a year or whatever, but it's not going to be like it forever. So, let's not worry about it. Let's crack on. Try and set our expectation. Things will return back to normal. I think people perhaps also then try and say, well, it's really soon. It's going to return tomorrow. It's not. But, let's be reasonable. Say we will get back to a normal life. Just right now, we're not completely sure when that's going to be. And we should try, therefore, to live a sustainable life for ourselves in this time, in the moment we're in. And when the moment changes, we'll get back to all the things we enjoy.
Yeah, and I think that's a helpful message for this time, especially in the UK as we go back into a lockdown. And one of the habituators at the end of the chapter actually was on challenging and changing the process when we're not fully believing in it. And I think that could be helpful if your process for lockdown perhaps wasn't what it should have been in the last lockdown, or your process going into this lockdown isn't quite right. Actually, if you don't fully believe in how you're going to approach it, then challenging and changing it and asking yourself questions could be really helpful.
Yeah, and I mean, these challenges are really helpful for the human being. Actually, if you think about how muscles grow, they have to be broken down and then rebuilt. If you think about how economies work, there has to be recessions to prune companies. And, you know, maybe for the lockdown process and times when it's also it's true if you're sick, actually, or if you're injured as an athlete. The athletes put a lot of psychology into what happens when they're fit, when they're ill, or when they're injured. And it can be really the lowest moment because they suddenly realize they've put all their self-worth in how fast they are or how fit they are or how good they are at football. But actually, you know, diligently doing your rehab is as much a skill as scoring 3 goals in the Premier League. And coming back from illness and coming back from setback, you can develop a whole belief system about how to do that. I mean, I'm just a recreational athlete, but I know if I get injured or if something goes wrong, I've got beliefs that I will recover, that I can get better, that it will take time, and that I need to do the right inputs, but that things will come good again, and that I need to manage my frustrations and emotions so I don't get down.
Absolutely. Well, Jonna, we're running out of time. We've got just a few minutes left. So all that's left to say is thank you. Thank you for joining me again. And we're here every weekday, 1:30, every day, through the week. We're here tomorrow. We're going to be talking about culture creation. You looking forward to that one, Jonna?
Yeah. Well, I think a great live show is just a good live show that got better, and that's why we decided to do 20 shows.
Absolutely.
We might be only okay now, but who knows how good we might be by the end. What do you think the potential is?
I think that I believe, Jonna. I believe we can be great.
I think we need to get some guests though, Chris, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. We're looking to bring guests in for later in the week, so we'll keep you posted.
Brilliant. Well, thanks everyone for coming, and thanks so much, Chris, for hosting. It's been great to be with you all.
Thanks all.
You're listening to the A to Z of Human Performance live show weekdays at 13:30 GMT with Chris Lissaman and resident expert Jonna Sercombe. Please enjoy responsibly. That's a good sound effect. Please enjoy responsibly. Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.